Hello everyone. Today's practical deals with the creation of modal using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. According to the Wikipedia, the definition of modal is like a modal window is an element that sits on top of an application's main window. It creates a mode that disables the main window but keeps it visible with the modal window as a child window in front of it. Users must interact with the modal window before they can return to the parent application. Now, what is the usage of modal? The first is it is used to grab user attention. So you can use it when you want to interrupt user's current task to catch the user's full attention to do something more important. Like when you are submitting a form, you might create a modal window where you would ask, do you want to confirm it or are you sure you want to submit a particular form? The second usage of modal window is you can use a modal window whenever you need a user input. So when you want to get an information from the user, like for example, sign up form, login form, you can use the modal window. Then third, when you want to show an additional information without losing the context of the parent page, for example, when I click on an image and I want to show that image in large scale or in full resolution, then I could use the modal. The last is when you want to show information that is directly not related to the parent page and other options that are independent from another page. For example, the notifications that you wanted to give out. So in this case also you can use modal. Now what is the anatomy of a model? When we are working on an anatomy of a model, these are the 6 points that we need to take into consideration. The first, you must give users a way to escape by giving them a way to close the modal. This can be achieved using the following ways. First, either you can provide a cancel button, a close button, a escape key or any click outside the window. Each modal window must also have a keyboard accessible control to close that window. That is, escape key can be used to close the window. Second one, you should provide a descriptive title to the modal. So what does this descriptive title do? It gives a context to the user that allows the user to know where he or she is because they haven't left the original page. The third one is that you should provide buttons onto the modal. So button label should have some actionable, understandable name. This applies to a button for any instance. For example, a close button should appear in the form of a cross or multiplication sign. Then fourth, a modal window should not be too big or too small. You want it just right. The goal is to keep context. Therefore, the model should not take up the whole screen view. The content should fit the model. If the scroll bar is needed, you may consider creating a new page instead. So what is about the location? The location could be the upper half of the screen because in mobile view, model which is placed in the lower part might be lost or might be difficult to find. The second, do not use 50% of the screen for the overlay. The fifth one is focus. When you open a model, use a light box effect, that is darken a background slightly. This draws the attention to the model and indicates that the user cannot interact with the parent page. And the sixth point is user initiated, that you don't need to surprise users by popping up a model. Let a user action such as a button click or following any link or selecting any option trigger the model. Uninvited models may surprise the user and may result in a quick dismissal of the window. The modal dialogues were originally intended to alert users to an error or to some other system state that require an immediate user action. In these cases, it was essential for users to be interrupted in order to fix the error. Thus, placing a dialog box in the middle of a screen as the focal point of the interface made it very effective. The big advantage of such modal dialog was that they attracted user attentions and allowed them to acknowledge the problem and correct it quickly. However, the original use has evolved and now modal dialogues and windows are used to attract users' attention for legitimate or some less legitimate reasons. Now, these are some guidelines which should be followed while using the modal dialogues. Whenever there is a chance that the user work be lost or that an action may have destructive, irreversible consequences, interrupt the user to avoid a disaster. To determine what error is severe enough to warrant a dialog box, you must consider the following. First, would the problem be easier or harder to correct if user's attention is taken away from the task. Second, is the error reversible? So in both of this scenario, it is expected that you would provide a dialog box. The second, use model dialog to request the user to enter information critical to continuing the current process. What does it mean? That whenever we are missing some information that prevents the system from continuing a user initiated process, a model dialog can prompt the user for that information. For example, when you want to buy some product on an e-commerce, when you click on the buy now button, now to buy that particular product, you need to log in into the system, because many websites they show products first, and when you click on the buy now button, they show you a login page. So in such scenarios, a modal dialog box can be used. The third one is modal dialogs can be used to fragment a complex workflow into simpler steps. So when it comes to workflow, for time consuming and emotionally involved tasks, it can be overwhelming to ask for lots of information all at once. In those situations, modal dialogues can be used to break the complex information up into simpler, more digestible chunks. However, it is important to note that a model with multiple steps will just prolong the amount of time spent away from the main task, making it more likely that the users will forget what they were doing in the first place. So if you do multiple step models, give users a sense of their progress so they don't abandon immediately. That said, if it requires multiple steps to begin with, it probably justifies dedicating a full page to it. Point number three, model dialogues can be used to fragment a complex workflow into simpler steps. When you are having multiple steps that needs to be followed to complete a task, you can divide that multiple task into different models and get information from the user regarding it. Number four, use model dialogues to ask information that when provided would significantly lessen the user works or effort. Models can work effectively when the information being requested or presented is relevant or can streamline the completion of the current task. Number five, do not use modal dialogues for non-essential information that is not related to the user flow. Number six, avoid modal dialogues that interrupts high stakes processes such as checkout flow. So whenever on e-commerce platform, you want a particular product to get, you want a user to purchase a particular product. Number seven, avoid modal dialogues for complex decision making that requires additional sources of information unavailable in the model. So now we would start with the practical of this particular thing. So first we would be creating an HTML page. Then followed by the HTML page, we would be having the CSS to show the effect. And last, we would be having a JavaScript that enables the functionality of showing the model as well as closing the model whenever we click, might be on the crossbar or might be outside the modal. I will be using Sublime Text Editor for this particular practical and the Chrome browser. Okay, so I have created three different files. The first file is my index.html where I would be keeping my HTML page. Second would be my main.js. That would be the scripting file in which we will write our JavaScript. And the last, styles.css, in which we would be writing our CSS contents. Okay, now we will start editing the index.html page. Now in index.html, I would be starting with the declaration of HTML5, that is doc type, and then the HTML tag. In this, we would be writing the head tag followed by the title of the page. The title of the page that I am giving is Modal Demo. Now to link the CSS, I would be using link rel equals to, in double quoted, style sheet, and then reference to this particular, so href equals to the name of the CSS file, which is styles.css. Okay, after this I would be closing the head tag. Then I would be starting with the body tag. Now in the body tag, what we want to create we want to create a button. By clicking on that particular button, a modal will be displayed onto the screen. And for this purpose, what I would be writing over here is that I would be writing button, the ID of the button, which is the name that we would be using. So it is like my btn. Okay. So this is the ID of the button that we are having. After this, we would be naming this button with some value. So for example, I could write it as open modal. Okay. After this, with this particular line of code, the button has been created. Now we will use or we will create a division for modal. So we would be writing div id equals to my modal with class equals to modal. I would be explaining why you have used id over here. We have used id over here to call it later from our JavaScript. Okay, this particular statement is used to create the division for the model. Now we want to place the content inside the model, and for this purpose what we would be writing, we would be writing div class, and the name of the class that we are giving is, it is like model content. This is just the name that we have provided, and we have closed down the task, and we have ended with our div. In this div tag we would be writing a span class equals to close. This is for the cross button that we would be having at the side of our modal, so that the user can close the particular modal that has been opened. And for this purpose we are using a symbol, and this particular symbol is like times, which gives out a multiplication symbol, and then we would be closing the span. After this, in this span we would be mentioning the text that we want to display to the user. For example, some text in the modal. Okay, then we would be closing with the modal content, and then we would be closing with the complete modal. Okay, this way we have created a division, and when after this what we would be having, we would be including the script. So script, and address of the script would be given by source. What is the name of file, JavaScript file that we are having? main.js. After this we would be closing the body, and we would be closing the HTML tag. Okay, so this is what we are having. So what we are having, a declaration for HTML5, a head consisting of the title and the link to CSS. Then in the body section we are having a button with the name of button being open modal, which consists of a division for declaration of a modal, in which we have placed under the class name modal content the information that we want to display the user. And after this we have displayed a JavaScript by which we would be providing a functionality to display or to not display the modal. Now if I click on the open in browser, you could see whatever content now is being shown onto the HTML page. So what we are having, we are having an open modal button, a cross symbol. Now this cross symbol was included by and times semicolon in the span tag, and after that this is the text we want to display to the user when he is clicking on that open modal. This is related with the HTML part. Now what we would do is we would move on to the CSS part to see how the modal would be created and how we could show the result, or we could display the result properly. Okay, now we will study what CSS is required for displaying the modal. Okay, initially the modal should be hidden, and for this purpose, first thing we would be writing the name of the modal. So the class is like class modal. Hence we would be writing dot modal, and then we would be first thing is like we don't want to display initially the modal until and when it is called for. Second, we say that the position for this particular modal is fixed. Then z index, so it is a property by which you could stack one window or another or one modal over another. So higher the number, the higher is the priority for this. Then we would be writing padding, so where it should start, how it should look like. So padding will be of 100 pixels. After this, these are the values that from left it should start from 0, from top it should start from 0. Then I expect the width of the model is 100%. I expect the height to be 100%. Okay, so this is what we are having. We would save this. I would just remove this part for displaying it onto an HTML page. So if I click on this and if I click on refresh, now you could see that the text content has position has changed. If I write like display none, if I save it and if I refresh it, now it would not be visible. But we want it to be visible just for understanding how does it look. So I would remove this part just for now. Then we are having a property of background color, the RGB values. So RGB value is 0, 0, 0. You could choose any color of your choice. And then we can also have a background color again. Now this background color is for providing the opacity in the background. Okay, so now I save this. Now let us see what is the output. Okay, now you can see the output that a portion has been created where we are having text stacked, hence you are able to select this, but you are not able to click on the open model button just because this model have now disabled the functionality of the button. Okay, so this is, so if I change this value, so might be for like I could change this value to 1. What would happen? Let us see. It is getting completely dark. So we do not want the color to be completely dark because the 000, the absence of any color is black. And when we are changing the opacity, like from 0.4 to 1, it turns to be completely black. Now if I say 0.2, if I save it and if I refresh it, now you could see the output. Okay, now this is just regarding the CSS for the modal part. The second, we also want to provide a CSS to the modal content. So for content, we will go to the index.html. We will see what we have given. So we have given a class name modal.content. So in CSS, I would write dot modal content. Okay, and then we would be writing that the background color that I want for this is FE. You could give color of your choice. The margin that I am expecting is auto. The padding from all sides would be like 220 pixels. After this, I want a border for this. So the border for this that I am expecting is, it is 1 pixel. The border should be solid and it should be of color 888 and the width should be of the 80% of the window. Now we have created the CSS for the modal content, and now we would go and check what is the result. So if I refresh it, now you could see the background color has been white because of FE, which is nearer to white. And then we are having a cross symbol along with the text. And now we also have a margin, a padding of 20 pixels, and then the border color to be hash 888. Okay, now in this way we could see that we have created a modal with a background opacity color as well as the box has been created. Okay, now we want to provide a CSS to this closing button. So whenever I hover my mouse over this particular cross button, its CSS or its presentation should change, its color should change. The symbol that I am getting currently is a text symbol, it should change to pointer. So this is what I want to do, and for this purpose what we would be doing in our CSS, we would be writing for that particular cross symbol. Now how we can refer to the cross symbol in our CSS? For this purpose what we are having is, we are having the class of this particular button to be close. We would write the name of the class, which is dot close, and then we would now provide it with some color. So color could be any color according to your choice. So it might be BB. Okay, so 6 times B. Then I want it to float. Float where? Towards the right end of the box. Then I can provide it with the font size property. I expect that its size should be of 28 pixels, and then the font weight property. So I want it to be bold. So this is what we are having for the close button. So I would save this, we would refresh this, and now you could see the position has been changed towards right. Even now what we are having is, we are having a cursor. So instead of cursor, I want that whenever I take my mouse over this particular cross symbol, its icon should change, or the mouse pointer should change to the hand symbol. And for this purpose, we would be writing dot close, and what is the property? That whenever I am hovering it, so dot close and hover, or dot close focus. So if I click over here, or if I'm hovering my mouse over here, its value should change. So what value I expect it to be? So color, now I want it to be dark, I want it to be the black color, hence I am writing it completely zeros. Then some text decoration, I don't want any decoration over to be there, and I want to change the cursor, and the cursor we want over here is pointer. So now I save it. Now if I check what is the output that I'm getting, I'm refreshing it. Now if I take my mouse over there, you could see the color is changing as well as my pointer is changing. So we have been able to achieve the functionality that we wanted, that whenever any person will go and click over this particular symbol, the pointer should change as well as the color should change. Okay, now this is the part, what we wanted in our CSS. Now just for the display section, I don't want to display it until and when someone clicks on the open modal button, and hence I am saving it to display to be none. So if I write display to be none, now refresh it, we would not be getting anything, and we would not be even getting anything when we are clicking on this particular button. And for this purpose, what we need to do is, we need to add a JavaScript to our file. So for this particular thing, we would move towards our third file, which we call to be the main.js file. And here we would be writing our JavaScript. So as you have worked with JavaScript before also, you know how to declare variables, as well as I also expect you how to use functions. Okay, now what we would be writing is, we would be start declaring a variable. Now what is the variable that we would be creating? The first variable is a modal variable that we would be using. And why I am creating this? So I am creating this because I want to access this particular modal. And when I want to access this particular modal, I could access it by the unique name which is given by the ID. ID that I have given is my modal. So what we would be writing is I am creating a variable to be modal and I am writing it like document dot get element by ID. Okay. And what is the name? The name that I have given was my modal. Okay, semicolon, we would be moving towards next line. Now what we want to do, I want to have a line where when I clicks on a button, it will open a modal. And for this purpose, I would be writing var btn. This is the new button that I have created. Again, document dot get element by ID. What is the name of the button? The name of my button was my btn. So I would be writing it like small btn. Now we have to look out for the functionality for the close button that we are having. So if you could go to the index.html page and you would see this is what we are having for our close button. So span, class and close. Okay, so we are having close to be a class. So for accessing this particular thing in our JavaScript, we would include var span equals to document dot get element by class name. Okay, and then we would write the name of the element which is closed, and I want to have its first appearance into the web page, and hence I am writing 0 semicolon. Okay, now what we need to do, we need to identify that when the user clicks on the button, we have to open the modal. So I am repeating again, when the user clicks the button, you have to open the modal. And for this, we would write button dot on click equals to function. Okay, and what is the function? The function is modal dot style dot display equals to block. Okay, now what we are doing over here, you have to understand the modal, its style, and the property which is display, and we are changing that value from none to block. Now where we have written it to be none, so you can see in our modal the display block that we have written, its value was none. Now what you are doing using JavaScript, you are changing the value of this particular none with block, and because of this now your block will start showing onto the screen. Okay, this is related with opening a block. Now when I am clicking onto the cross sign or the closing sign, it should get closed. So what do you mean by how we can achieve that? So instead of doing that, what I would do, it is span that on click equals to function. And what function I am referring to? I am referring to a function that I want to close that particular block. So modal dot style dot display equals to none. So if I want to hide it, I would write it to be none. If I want to show it, I would write it to be showing in terms of block. This is what, that when we click onto the cross sign, it would work. But I also want a functionality that whenever I click outside the modal should get closed. And for that purpose, we would write window dot on click equals to function. We have to perform this function when an event occurs, hence we will write an event over there, and then if event dot target equals to modal. Okay, then what I need to do? I need to do modal dot style dot display equals to none. Okay, so in this way we have written our JavaScript for displaying that element. So this is my modal is to get the modal block from the HTML. This is for getting the button. This is for getting the close button, and then the variable name button dot on click. You have to open a function where it would change the value of display to be display of modal to be block. If you are closing it, then display would be none, and if you are anywhere outside the modal, even then the modal dot display would be none. Now we would save it. Now we would check the output. So now let us say the output in browser. So if I open in browser, okay. So this is the model demo. The name. If I click it, no, the answer is not coming. So I would need to change something. So what we have done over here, it should be get elements by class name. Okay, and the name of function. Okay. So let's me save it. Let's now check whether it is coming or not. If I refresh it and if I click it, okay. Now we are getting some text in the model, which means if I click on this, it's getting closed. If I again click it, it is getting open. If I click outside this box, it is again getting closed. So what does it mean? It means that now our JavaScript is working fine. Now we need to look out for the CSS part to make it more attractive. Okay. So we would work on the CSS part now. Let us see what we can have. So what we can add overflow to be auto. This is just if in case you need scrolling in your model. If you refresh it, it is coming out to be the same. Because we do not have much more text over here, hence the scroll will not appear, but you should know about this particular thing. Okay, now let us see again the output in the browser, how it is looking. So if I click it, this is my model demo, this is the file. If I click on this, okay, I am getting a result over here, which is fine. This is the some text in the model that we are getting. Now if you want it like to change the CSS, you could make it like padding from top to be 200 pixels. Now let us see what is the output that we are getting. So if I refresh it, now if I click it, it has slided down. So this is related with the model demo. Now what we would do is the output that we are getting is pretty simple one because it just consists of a single sentence, some text in the model. Now we want to have some header and footer to this model also, and for this we would be changing some contents. So for that we would go inside our HTML page, and in our HTML page we would be adding some text. Now where some text could be added, so this is where we are seeing that this text is getting changed. Okay, now we could like add header, footers as well as content over here. Now what we would do is we would create a header, we would create some text, and at last we would be having a footer for this model. For this purpose, now what I would do is I would write it like let me scroll it. So I would write it div class equals to model header. Now why we are writing it to be in a class? Because we want to apply a CSS property to it. hence we are writing it like this. So this is my header. Okay, and in this header, what I expect that the end of header should be with the cross sign, and hence I will be writing span class closure times span. Okay, then along with this, what I expect to display a content, so I would say that h2, and this is my modal header. Okay, and slash h2. Now this is regarding the header. I will close this block. Now I would write like div class. Now this deals with the modal body. So I would write modal body over here. I would close this, and then I could write a paragraph. This is the first modal I have created. Okay, slash p. Then some random text. Okay, then we would close the paragraph tag, and after this we would close the division tag. Now this deals with the modal body. At last I also want to have a footer, so I would write class equals to modal footer. Okay, close this particular class. Okay, not started. Okay, so modal footer, close the division. Then you could write over here that is h4. This is my modal footer. I could have written any content over here, but this is just for reference that we are writing. So modal footer. Now what we have done, if you could understand, okay. So this is what we were having as our content. So modal content, and in modal content I have created my header part, I have created the body part, as well as I have created the footer part. Now we would save this, and let's check out how the output looks like in our browser. So if I click out over here, if I click on the button, okay, now you are getting a block like modal header. This is the first modal that I have created, some random text, and then modal footer. And now what I would like to do is I would like to apply the CSS over there. So how we would apply CSS? So we would go to the styles.css, and there are various classes. First class that where we would apply is modal header, modal body, and modal footer. So we would go over here, then we would write. So now what we would do is now we would apply the CSS first to the header. For this, what I would write? I would write modal header. Now we will write the properties. First, we will say that we are provide the padding. Padding of how much? 2 pixels and 16 pixels. Okay. After this, I want to apply a background color. So background color, I could say the background color is yellow. You could write the values in hex also, no issues. And then the text color. So text color, let us say it is red. Okay, now I would save it. So if I open it in browser, so if I click on model, this is what now I am getting. Okay, so I have applied the CSS to the header. Now I want to apply the CSS to the footer. So I would go to my style sheet. Now let us make it the same. So for header, same for footer. Okay, now save it. You would go over here, refresh this page, click on opening model, and we are getting it now for opening footer. Okay, Now let us make some changes in the body part also, and then body, and the properties like padding, again same you would write 2 pixels and 16 pixels. So let us save this. Now let us check the output. So if I click over here, now it has been all are in margin. Now if I want to provide the color to this also, so I would write background color and let us write it to be aqua. Okay, and then color would be okay. So I have written it to be completely white. Now let us see how the output looks like. So I refresh it. If I click over here, this is what we are having. So instead of aqua, we could also write it to be green so that it will look good. So if I refresh it, if I open a model, okay. So now this is the model that we have created. If I click on this button, you could see that the color of this cross would change to black because we have applied that functionality over here. So if I click it over here, it would close. If I click on this, if I click outside this model, it will also close. We have created a model with application of CSS. Now as in the last practical, we have also studied about the animation. So how animations are applied? So for that you would write keyframes. Okay, and how the keyframes works? So when we are writing any keyframe, we need to write the name. So let us write the name. Slide in over here. Okay. So keyframes, the name slide in. Now what we would do is we would write from. This could be any value that we would write, that we would say that it starts from minus 300 pixels. Okay. The opacity initially is 0 and I want it to go to where I need to go it. I want it to go to top to 0 and then I want the opacity value to be 1 so that I could see it completely. Now this is what we are having. Now we need to include this animation into our model. So for this, what we would write, so we would include it in our model content. Okay, not in model but in model content. So in model content I could write animation name. What animation name that we are written, slide in. Okay, and then animation duration, then animation duration, let us make it 2 seconds. Okay, now let us see how what effects we have in our program. So if I refresh it again, if I click it over here, you could see that it is taking time to get displayed. So it is taking 2 seconds to show. You could also move it like from one position to another as we have seen in the last lecture, and you are free to do so. So this is related with model and along with animation.